What's up, everybody? Welcome to State of the Nation, the Athletics Raiders podcast. Jimmy Durkin joined here by Vic Tafur from the Athletic headquarters here in San Francisco. And Vic, you are freshly back from almost a week in Indianapolis. How are things back at the Combine?
Pretty great, man. I love the Combine. It's very chill. Everyone's kind of laid back, but everyone's also kind of serious and getting stuff done. There's a lot of people talking about what's going to happen, both in the draft and free agency. You kind of burn the candle on both ends. You're during the day talking to prospects, watching stuff, and during the night you're out schmoozing, just getting the gossip and just kind of comparing notes. And yeah, it's a great week. It was a little cold, a little snowed a little bit, but everyone's indoors, no one cares. So that's my favorite event of the year. And this year was even better because I liked a lot of the prospects. I think this first round's really good. Everyone wants to trade down this year, and I can see why, because a lot of good prospects I think are pretty exciting.
I'm a little bit surprised. I mean, a week of drinking late into the night, talking to people, meeting people, that doesn't sound like you.
No, it doesn't.
That's weird.
I'm kind of
this is how you come out of your shell, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to once a year come out of my shell. I kind of leave my old lifestyle behind, and I try and network and be out there and it's a lot of fun. You hear so much stuff. That's the thing about it. You hear all these reports that come out of it, and half of them are not true. Half are just rumors, but half are true. Things you hear background wise, and you make contacts, and just everyone's there just to talk football. And just the timing of the year is great. It'll be a shame. I'm going to go on it right now. It'll be a shame if they move this thing. I think it's going to move to L.A. pretty soon. It has to, because the NFL Network will be based in L.A. at the new stadium. They're going to run all the prospects through there, so it'll be there at some point. I think it's really a shame because I think Indianapolis does a great job. City just welcomes you in and kind of lets you do your own thing. There's no paparazzis, no fans want autographs of all the former players, the coaches. It's just very laid back. You can walk everywhere. There's bars and great restaurants, and I've been going now off and on for almost 10 years, and I love it. So I'm going to be sad when it leaves.
Yeah, and you guys had a huge crew from the Athletic there this year. That must have been a little bit different. You guys all met together, and I mean, just to see the strength of this company coming together to have 59 Athletic reporters there.
Man, I'm going to quote my guy Antonio Brown. Man, business is booming. 59 people were there. We had a summit on Friday. It was great to meet everybody and kind of talk about how far we've come, how far we're going to go, and everyone's very excited. And it was very cool. A lot of pride in who I work with, and I just think that. Things are going to get better and bigger, and I'm very excited about it.
All right, well, before we get too deep into the show, we will announce that this is the final show of this format of State of the Nation. The show is not going anywhere, but as Vic mentioned, we have big plans here at the Athletic, and I'll kind of leave it at that for now. But this show is hopefully getting bigger and better, so stay tuned for news of an April relaunch is kind of what we're planning. But for those of you that subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, all those other places, this will be the final show that's going to populate into your subscription there. But we're not going anywhere. The show will still be here. And really, from everything we're hearing, what the plans are, the show should only get better and better produced and better content. And so we're looking forward to it. So this will be the last show for probably about a month or so. But as April rolls around and we start gearing up for OTAs and obviously a hugely significant Raiders draft, we'll be back and better than ever, we hope.
Awesome.
All right, now back to the good stuff. Indianapolis, as you mentioned, obviously back there for what, 5? You added a day while you were there. You loved it so much. You said, "I'm staying another day."
Yeah, they had the D linemen talk later than planned. Like they were all talking around 4:00 on Saturday, so I couldn't leave Saturday night. So which is great because I really like Ed Oliver and Quinn Williams. It's probably the best D line class in 10, 15 years. So it's good to meet those guys and talk to them and just kind of see them eye to eye. And the extra day was great.
All right, now the biggest thing to come out of Indianapolis, in terms of what created probably the most chatter, is probably, and a lot of this you picked up on it, is Kyler Murray, a guy who didn't do a whole lot back there other than he measured in at just over 5'10". And everyone was saying he's going to be 5'8" and 7/4, 5'9". He measured in at a confident 5'10" and 1/8 inch.
Was it 1/8? That was a quarter.
1/8. I think it was 1/8.
It put some weight on. He had like 5-7 pounds. I mean, I just drank water for a week. I don't know what that means, but people got so excited, like, oh my god.
But the kind of the chatter that's really all coming out of Indy now is that the Cardinals at number 1. That's what it's looking like at this point. Obviously, things can change before the draft, but that seems to be where this thing is going.
Yeah, I think it's where everyone I talk to believes, and I believe it. I think when he didn't do anything as far as throwing or working out, to me that was a huge alarm that went off. Okay, someone's told him, you're done. Don't do anything. You're our guy. I think that was Arizona. I think if you see Cliff Kingsbury walking around town talking to people, he definitely gives you that vibe. Like he wants Murray. He doesn't care if you know about it. They got to find a spot for Josh Rosen either, in a trade, which shouldn't be too hard. I'm not sure what they'll get back for him, but I think that's something you can just if you're the coach coming in. You have a long-term plan. You have time to get this done. And you want your guy.
Yeah.
If he comes and says, hey, man, Josh Rosen's not my guy. My guy is Kyler Murray, and we can get him, so let's get him. And if you're the GM or the owner, you're like, okay. You're not going to say no. So
yeah.
I just think.
You're a team that just fired a coach after only 1 year. You're a team that needs direction, and maybe it's not the right direction, but if that's the direction that your leader wants to go.
Yeah, if you're crazy enough to hire a coach who lost to Texas Tech, then be crazy enough to give him what he wants a quarterback. I just don't the whole thing is crazy. But, yeah, I think everyone that I talk to that I respect in the league knows what's going on, thinks that Murray's going to win.
So now we got to talk about what's the impact on the Raiders there. That certainly, if that happens, that creates a situation where, suddenly Nick Bosa doesn't go number one, and he falls to number two, where it's hard to see the 49ers passing on him on number two.
I can't imagine how they would pass on.
The Niners would be the big winner here if Murray goes number one.
They want to a T. He's exactly like number one guy on their board, fits their biggest need. Just I think Bosa's great. I love Quinn Williams. I love Ed Oliver, but to me, Bosa's still my number one guy on the board, and I think the Niners would turn that pick in about 5 seconds. So I think Bosa goes second. And then third, I think, is wide open. The Jets are open for business. They have a quarterback, so they don't need to get Haskins. Probably going to trade down. Or now they can draft, a guy like Quinn Williams, who might be the best guy on the board, on some locker room, some draft board. So they're in a good spot. And then, like you mentioned, the Raiders are also in a great spot because I think if they want to get the impact rusher or defensive guy, now you're pretty much assured that Williams or Josh Allen falls to you at 4.
Yeah, so Kyler Murray going number one basically guarantees that, Bosa's not going to fall to 4, but it basically guarantees Bosa, Williams, and Allen, one of those guys is going to be available to you. And, who knows, if you already have Murray going, if some team is desperate enough to want Haskins, then they could be talking to you at 4, could be talking to the Jets at 3. It does create a situation where, that's what you see where when you have a quarterback draft where there aren't that many proven guys, and and this is probably not a draft where in most drafts Kyler Murray would be a number 1 and Haskins would be a top 5, but if a team needs a quarterback and they need to move up to get him, then that's what they could do.
Yeah, I think those are clearly the two best guys. I think there's definitely a fall off for those two guys. So I think those are two guys that you draft and think these guys can start for us next year. I think Daniel Jones and Drew Lock are like, I don't see it myself, but I guess you could convince yourself that it's possible. But I think if you're a team that wants to actually play a quarterback this year, you need one of those two guys. And I think the Raiders can either trade down if a team moves up in that spot for them. And this is a great draft. Everybody wants to trade down. That's the thing. This draft is so deep in the first 2 rounds that everybody wants to trade down and get more guys. So I think that'd be great for the Raiders if they went that way.
And I guess the other impact here in terms of Kyler Murray is Derek Carr. There is going to be every rumor possible about Derek Carr just because people love to throw out stuff about trading a quarterback.
And plus Gruden said, Gruden talked about the Senior Bowl. Gruden will tell you, he told the host the other day, like, a guy asked me a question and I answered it. Now, he was very effusive in his praise for Kyler Murray, but what else is he going to say? He gave his opinion.
Yeah, we joke about how John Gruden never criticizes a player, and then now we make so much out of when he praises a guy.
Exactly. I just think I don't know. I think I think today Peter King says that he has a terrible poker face and that he thinks Gruden really wants Kyler Murray. I disagree. I think he has a great poker face because I think he's a little crazy. He says whatever comes to his mind and doesn't mean all of it. And I think sometimes he doesn't care if you really quote him or not or what you take from what he says. So I just think that I think he wants Kyler Murray so badly, I think is a bad leap of faith. I actually personally think he likes Haskins better. That's what I've heard. He likes Haskins better. I think in this case, it's not going to matter. I think both guys will be gone in the top 3 picks, which is great for them.
Yeah, if both of those guys are gone, then you're guaranteed.
If you get Quinn Williams at 4,
it's great.
You've won. I think Quinn Williams had a great combine, had a great year in tape, last year in game film, and his first year playing the position. Mm-hmm. He's only going to get better. He's a hard worker. He's a very fast, very powerful kid, and I just think, and if you go back to look at Gruden's history, I know he always regretted, like he always looked back and, when I got rid of Sapp, I really screwed up. I should have kept Warren Sapp. That was my guy. Now's the chance to get your next Warren Sapp. You can build from scratch with your new Warren Sapp. And, he's got to be excited about that possibility.
All right, now before we get into more combine impressions, we got to get into the other big news involving the Raiders, and it's Antonio Brown. And obviously, a lot of reports about the trade market kind of heating up there, and different teams that are involved. And, I think the first mention was the Raiders, the Redskins, and the Titans. There's talk. Obviously, the Saints have interest. I don't know if they have the ammunition. There's on and off. There's some conflicting reports about if the Broncos are and are they not. Cardinals, another team mentioned. And so you start looking at it, and the Raiders certainly have the most ammunition to get Antonio Brown. If they want him, they can get him. If they want to go, all in, and if they throw the 27th pick at the Steelers, which I don't think they need to, but if they do, they can get him.
Yeah, they got the 4 picks in the top 35, the most salary, a lot of salary cap space. So if they want him, they can get him. I just think that's all about the price tag, and it's hard to gauge where the market is, because I'm sure the Steelers are feeding a lot of this stuff. The Steelers are dying to get rid of them, so I'm sure they're leaking a lot of stuff out there to kind of create a bigger market. You just don't know what teams are offering. I think that every time Brown goes on TV and makes a bigger ass of himself, I think teams are like, why? It's just, why would I want this guy? And again, this is a guy who's had 6 straight 100-catch seasons. That's incredible to me.
Yeah.
And he's available is incredible to me. The fact that no one's diving to get him is because he keeps talking. He keeps talking about how I don't need football, screw the Steelers, and I get it. He's upset. He's had these 6 great years in a row. He's not getting guaranteed money. The rest of his deals are not guaranteed.
He sees what happens with Le'Veon Bell, where their other star has to sit out a whole year.
He's in a bad spot. His quarterback gave him a hard time for questionable reasons. The GM called the rest of the team kids as opposed to Big Ben. I get where he's coming from. He's upset. He's taking it personally. He's 30 years old, looking at the downside of his career. But he's got to stop going on TV. He's just hurting himself. I know he's trying to shame the Steelers, and he doesn't care what they get back in a trade. Still,
if you're a player, the less the team gets back in a trade, the better for you, because you want the team that you're going to not have to give up as many assets.
Right. So it's going to be fascinating. I think March 17th is the deadline. Not deadline, but that's the day coming up where
the roster bonus, $2.5 million.
They don't want to give him $2.5 million. After all this, the last thing they want to do is hand him a check, because he definitely is gone. So if you are a team like the Raiders who has interest in him, then you have a couple weeks. Yeah,
the way I look at it, like I mentioned, I don't see any reason why they would have to give up the 27th pick, because you look at the other teams that we're talking about involved. Washington, Tennessee, they're not giving up 15 or 19. Nobody's going that high. The Saints might have a lot of interest, but they only, in the first 4 rounds, they only have a second-round pick. No first rounder, no third, no fourth. And they could give up a future pick, sure, but do the Steelers want something for right now? I don't know. It's hard.
To me, if you're giving Antonio Brown, and obviously Le'Veon Bell is going to be gone, so are you really playing for this year? I guess you are, because Big Ben's still there. But I think a first-round pick next year wouldn't be that bad for them.
Yeah, if the Saints are willing to give that up. And at this point, is anybody willing to give up a first-round pick for him? And this is another kind of funny.
Can you imagine Drew Brees and Antonio Brown?
That's pretty incredible.
Good God.
But it's weird where we've gotten, at a time, a 30-year-old football player. Okay, that's the guy that's kind of in the middle, maybe slightly later stage of his career. We've reached a point, and maybe it's the post PED era where though people aren't juicing up as much. That 30 has now become a point where you're like decrepit at 30.
And he's in immaculate shape. He had 15 touchdowns last year
in a quote unquote bad year down here.
I don't worry about that part of it. I think he's going to, and plus, talk about a guy something to prove. He's going to want to show Steelers they made a big mistake. He'll be coming out gangbusters. I just think, I don't know. I think if you're the Steelers, what may work in the Raiders' favor is that the Raiders are not seen as a contender. Now, they're seen as pretty far off. So I think if you're the Steelers, you don't want to risk trading him.
We can throw him there.
Exactly.
Whatever.
You don't want to give him to the Saints and watch him on Super Bowl Sunday talking about, how, hey, Big Ben kissed my ass. They don't want to see that. So I think ideally, they want to give him to a team that's not going to be, in the running next year. So I think that helps the Raiders a little bit.
We're talking before about how this is going to be a very telling move, how the Raiders handle this, because I think if we're talking about John Gruden last year, where he's just running the show, and maybe some of his moves are a little bit rash, obviously giving a third rounder for Martavis Bryant. This is going to be, where we get to see how much influence does Mike Mayock have to to make sure we take a measured, controlled approach. Because I think, Mayak comes in here, he's like, I got 4 picks in the top 35. He's not going to want to part. And I think Gruden, obviously, taking all the heat for those trades that produced those 4 picks, neither of those guys are going to want to just give one of those picks away very easily, unless they know they're getting an impact player that is going to be able to fit in seamlessly. So this will be a pretty telling kind of story here to follow, just to see how the Raiders handle this, and are they kind of gaining some strength in that front office that can make good, measured moves? And
do they care at all about making a splash as far as their last year in Oakland, trying to sell some tickets, kind of get fans a little hope this year won't be a train wreck like last year was. So I just think that's also part of the debate. Mark Davis probably will chime in his thoughts in that matter, but I think that there's a lot to it. There's a rebuilding thing versus just not having as much patience as you want to have versus it's our last year in Oakland. Let's give the fans something to cheer for. And again, Antonio Brown is a lot of fun to watch. Raider fans may not want to say it right now, like, oh, don't do it. But if they get him and come next year in a home game, they'll be pretty happy about it because he's still phenomenal. And the other aspect here is that if you get him and you give him to Derek Carr, that is a good way to make your foot. You've had all last year. You have to take this year. You give him a number one receiver, a true number one receiver. And that's a good way to evaluate him. All right, you've got a guy now. Now we get to see what you can do, presumably at a tight end maybe in the draft. And now we get to see what can you do, Derek Carr. And if you can't make it work with Antonio Brown, then I think we have a good idea of where we're at quarterback, and maybe we need to start figuring out what we're going to do there. Yeah, no more excuses. This will be it. This is show me what you got. If you're our guy going forward. If not, then we're going to find somebody else to go to Vegas. Yep. All right, let's get to some other Combine impressions, other Combine winners. We talked about Quinnen Williams, and you wrote the story that we posted on Sunday night about Quinnen Williams taking his 4 Oreos in the morning and giving up the Oreos to train there. And but he grabbed 4 double-stuffed Oreos in Sunday morning, a little snack there, and goes out and runs a personal best, 4.87 in the 40. Nicole Lynn, his agent, said, "You're good. You done enough?" But that wasn't enough for him. Yeah, I think it's impressive. I think it was a personal best, too. The 4.87 was the best he's ever run. So I definitely think a lot of athletes in that spot in the draft was, you know what? I am done. I don't want to risk injury. I don't want to risk a worse time, and I can go off on a high note. I'm never going to have to run a 40-yard dash ever again. Exactly. This is the last one. But give him credit. He wanted to do better, and he did better. I just think that tells me a lot about his spirit and about his attitude. Look back at last year, and he kind of moved positions, gained some weight. And he dominated. It's pretty impressive. And that's the thing that people are going to be, who cares about the 40-yard dash for this guy? The thing, to me, it matches up with the game tape. And that's what's going to be the big thing. Is he dominated on the field and then had this 40. Yeah, I just think his upside's huge. You talk about a guy who you're going to pick in the top 4 who is not scratched the surface at all. I think he's, I like him a lot, obviously. I just think he really did a nice job this week to kind of solidify himself as being a top two guy. I think most of the around the league think he's top 2 as far as non-quarterbacks. Yeah. So. It is funny, though, when you think about all the work that goes into these guys. They go to these special facilities. Obviously, he was down at Kobe Bryant's facility training, and there's so much that goes into running this 40-yard dash. And if you go to the Combine and run a good 40-yard dash, then you don't have to run it at your pro day. You are literally never going to do that ever again in your life. Because once you get in the league, they don't have you run a 40-yard dash. There's months of training that go into the one time you're going to run it there, and then you're done. Yeah, it's weird. And there's just so much specialization now, so much focus on these 40s and on the Combine drills that, to me, this year especially, all these times are really fast. Everyone ran fast here at the Combine. But you're wondering, am I getting an athlete, a guy who trained to run a 40, or am I getting a football player? Am I getting a guy who, if I ignore his tape and focus on the Combine, am I making a big mistake? So I think it's harder than it has been because it used to be there were a handful of Combine freaks, guys who came out of nowhere. And now there's a lot of guys. It's a big business to train for the Combine. It's huge. It's unbelievable to see. There's a guy at the airport the other day who was saw I was a reporter talking to somebody. He said, "Hey, man, my son's a trainer," and he showed me pictures and how I get involved in the business. I'm like, I get it. I can see why they want to do it, but you can't be hanging out at airports looking for athletes to ask or reporters to ask them how you do. But yeah, it's a huge business. I think you can see why, because I think these guys make a lot. Montez Sweat made a lot of money this week. 4.41 40 time for an edge guy. Got one probably the last half. I'll say probably 15 to 22 range, probably a top 10 pick. So I just think that's a lot of money. I just think he's a guy, we saw him at the Senior Bowl live I thought he was all right. I mean, he didn't blow me away. To me, if I see a guy in practice for 3 or 4 days and I watch him in the game, I talk him up close, and he's going to be a top 10 pick, I got to be blown away. And he did not blow me away. So I think I'm still not sold on him. I know people love Josh Allen. To me, he was one of the losers this week because I think he came off well in the interviews, and obviously he has great game film, but his hand size was like a lot smaller than other guys on the D-line. And to me, it's interesting because look back at his game film and some of the critiques before the combine. One thing you saw was not great use of his hands, not heavy-handed, doesn't do a lot of stuff. And now I see why. I mean, if he has small hands, I mean, that matters. I just think I have enough questions about him where, again, I think he's a really good player. But do I think he's I know he mentioned his idols are Khalil Mack and Von Miller. Khalil Mack,
elite hand fighter.
Yeah, and very violent. I mean, because of his hands. I don't see that with Josh. And I just think I think he's very good. But I think if you take him top 5 and you're expecting an impact guy to rush in the quarterback from day one, I think you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you talk about the speed. I mean, from those guys off the edge. I mean, Devin Bush, a linebacker, 4.43 in the 40. Devin White, 4.42. I mean, we've got these linebackers now that are running wide receiver 40 times.
Yeah, you're going to have 2 inside linebackers probably going to top 20, 25 picks, which is pretty rare. And Devin White's great. I mean, there are guys who blew me away when I talked to him. He's one of them, just a guy who's so very confident and checked off every box and just an impact player. And he and Roquan Smith were the same agent, and he just said that it's a guy who he's patterned himself after, has a lot of the same qualities. I just think he's a guy. To me, watching the game film and you meet these guys in person, I have no doubt Devin White's going to be an impact player next year. I mean, it doesn't fit the Raiders because they draft too high. I mean, but he's a guy. Whoever gets him is going to be thrilled because he's going to be phenomenal.
Another guy that had obviously a huge week, I mean, probably one of the guys that was talked about the most at the Combine is Ole Miss receiver DK Metcalf. I don't know if it's really accurate, the 1.6% body fat. I don't know about.
He looks huge, man. This guy looks like a linebacker.
But obviously, I mean, the 40 times for receivers were blazing. He was 4.33. I mean, you saw Paris Campbell 4.31, Andy Isabella. You got to see a lot of it at Senior Bowl 4.31. But DK Metcalf, a guy who certainly jumped up on the radar in a draft where, I mean, I know Mike Mayock, you kind of started off the week talking, I don't really know if there's true number one receiver, right. Not the elite receivers, good receivers, maybe not the elite, and then then you see what Metcalf, the performance he has, and maybe he's not going to end up being that guy in the NFL, but the numbers that he performed at the Combine suggest that he's going to be drafted that way.
Yeah, the only comps to him are Calvin Johnson and Julio Jones. Those are pretty good comps. I mean, just a guy looks like he made some big plays in college. He was hurt a lot in college, but him and A.J. Brown, another guy at Ole Miss. I wonder, who was the Ole Miss quarterback? He must have been terrible. I never heard of Ole Miss last year. I didn't watch them in the highlights. I never heard of they weren't top team. I mean, that quarterback must be terrible. But I like A.J. Brown a lot, too. I think he's very good. So I think there's definitely some quality there. In rounds 2 or 3 for the receivers. But yeah, Metcalf is clearly the number one guy based on that Combine. It's the combination of strength and speed. And I mean, people look at him and think Calvin Johnson. And I think that's pretty high praise. So
yeah, and you want to talk about Paris Campbell too. I mean, he was another guy that jumped out there, the Ohio State receiver. Talked about the 4.3 140. I mean, it's
I think people knew he was going to be fast. Didn't know he was going to be that fast. And he also was very crisp in his routes. Looked good in the drills. I think he's a guy who definitely helped himself. Probably moves up to the top 2 or 3 guys at the position. So I think there's. Again, I mean, Andy Isabella, the guy we talked about at Senior Bowl, like he's from UMass, definitely, I think solidified himself as a 3rd-round pick now because he had a great run and definitely is playing both inside and outside, and I think that's a guy John Gruden definitely likes. 3rd, maybe a little high for a guy that small, but I think he'll go in that range, 3 or 4 at the latest. I think it's very interesting. So there's a lot of good receivers now. I mean, it's not a great class. I think you take away Metcalf. You're looking at probably like 10 guys in that next group who are all maybe 2nd to 3rd to early 4th range, but they all have a chance to start next year.
Jordan Ta'amu, Ole Miss quarterback, kid out of Hawaii, a 6'3", 221-pound senior. His prospect grade on NFL.com, 4.92, should be in an NFL training camp. He threw for 3,918 yards, 19 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions, and ran for 342 yards and 6 scores.
I mean, if you have those 2 guys, give me a month to work out, and those 2 receivers, I'll do some damage. I mean, I just chuck it up there and let them run under it. But, I'm not very impressed with it. I don't never met the guy or heard about the guy in my life, but obviously I'm not a big fan of his because I like those receivers a lot. And if you have those 2 quality guys in your college offense, you should be definitely top offense.
All right, well, we talked about a lot of the winners. One guy who did not enjoy a good combine, Jachai Polite from Florida. I'm looking at a headline here. Jachai Polite might have had the worst NFL combine of all time.
Really? Wow.
His interviews not good. Workouts. Your impressions there?
Yeah, I think he started off on the wrong foot. I think it was a little defensive. I think like a lot of these, maybe the teams came out a little hard because they pointed out the stuff he did wrong. He's not very good in the run game. They showed him some flaws and wanted us to pick his brain about what he saw in the film as far as what he could have done better. Didn't respond very well to that kind of criticism. Then he hurt his hamstring, didn't do a lot of the stuff on the workout. He ran once and pulled up the hamstring, so didn't really show his athleticism on the field. And to me, I think it's a double-edged sword. I think, obviously, he hurt himself. I mean, he's one of the guys that will go on this loser list. But you pop in his game film, and the guy's explosive. He's got great lean, great bend. He makes plays, forces fumbles. He's all over the field. He's a guy, before the combine, there was no way he'd be there for the Raiders at 24 or 27. And now it probably is because of this importance of these interviews and how he didn't come off the right way, which is important, but I think is overstated. I just think, to me, it always goes back to the game film. I think if you're the Raiders – and he's there at 27, he's what you need. You need speed on the end who can get to the quarterback, and he does that. He's very fast, and he's an elite athlete in his draft. So I think it's good for the Raiders. I think it's good for them that he's going to fall a little bit, and now you have a chance to take him.
You talk about how he shows the game film. Well, he said he's never watched game film of himself.
Right.
So he doesn't know what he shows on film.
He's not a student of the game. I mean, again, there are definitely some red flags with him. He doesn't seem to care too much about that stuff. I mean, he's a guy, I think, just plays football. I think that I don't mind that. I think there's some guys who, like Quinn Williams, obviously, he says he watches film all the time. He's trying to be like a quarterback. I think that's great. But some guy, that's why he's going to be a top 5 pick. But, a guy like Polite, he just wants to get the quarterback. He wants to get the ball, get the quarterback. And to me, that's fine. I mean, I don't need you to – some guys I don't need to break down film with me and watch, where he should be. And I get it. It's important. But if you have the ability to make an impact and make game-changing plays, I can live with some others. I can live with a bad interview. I can live with a guy who doesn't watch film that much. I can work around that. Just because you need athletes. You need a guy. He's an elite athlete at a position of need for the Raiders. And to me, and the game film's good. If it'd be one thing if you watch the game film, the plays he took off or his plays, he pretty much, every game he played, I've heard of, and other scouts have told me this, that he was good every week. He didn't mail one in. So I liked him before the combine. I know he's going to be falling down the boards and he's terrible and, oh my God, a horrible interview, but to me, that's
the
fine.
Raiders told him to act like that so they can take him at 27.
Exactly.
There you go. All right, before we hit some questions, any other final impressions you want to talk about from your time in Indy?
I'm trying to think. Not really. I mean, I was at the Carr report came out the other night about the shopping car. I don't want to respond to random reports, but I don't think that one was true. I don't believe they're shopping him. I think, is it possible they could trade him? Always. We've talked about that as a possibility for the last year, but I don't think they were trading him. I don't think they're shopping him at least. I just think that, like I said, there's so much stuff flying around at these meetings. You can't write half of it or 2/3 of it because there's people talking. You really wonder, think about who told you it and why, what their agenda is. So, I mean, I think Derek Carr can not worry about that right now. I think just, and again, there's no real reason to trade him. There's no real reason to shop him at this point. I think they don't have a lot of leverage as far as what they can get for him at this point. They both said Mailbag agreed, and he's their guy. He's their franchise quarterback. Again, they don't have to be totally honest, but I believe him for right now, for this moment.
Yep. All right, now it's time for some questions, State of the Nation mail, and we're going to start with Benjamin Herman. He asked a pretty good question, and I think we have a pretty obvious answer to it, but we'll ask it anyway. You often say of rookie Raiders that they need to put on weight, get stronger in the offseason before year 2. I don't get this. They know all along what size strength they need to be in the NFL, so why don't they do that work before their rookie season? Well, there's a couple things. I mean, one is obvious time. They spend this time right now, they're prepping for the combine, and so getting faster often is more important than getting stronger because they want to see explosion and all that, and so they can't put as much weight on themselves. So and all of a sudden, then suddenly they get drafted in April, And then, because different teams want different things, especially if you're talking about alignment. Some teams want a guy who is bulked up and big and, is going to be an anchor, and some guys want those faster, quicker guys. So it takes until they really get to the team that they go to that they really know exactly, you'll hear a lot of players say it, like, okay, now I know what body type they want, and so now I can build myself into that body type. And so it's partially that. It's partially once you get that year of playing in the NFL, you kind of – maybe you think you were big, you're strong enough, but now you kind of realize what it takes. And so there's a lot that goes into it, but you really just you don't have the knowledge yet until you actually play there.
Well said.
All right,
next,
move on. Anthony Rodriguez, is Rashawn Gary actually in play at number 4 like all these mock drafts have him? This dude just doesn't make plays.
I get why he is up there because he is kind of the classic Paul Guenther big end who can get some pressure. So I think in terms of the fit for Guenther's defense, I get it. I also agree that I'd be concerned with a guy who has like 10.5 sacks in 3 years in Michigan. People say it's not how he was used. Yeah, it is. I mean, you got to give me, if you're an end and you're supposed to be an elite guy, I need more than 10.5 sacks in 3 years. So I just think he's a classic guy who didn't have great film at all times. Definitely trained his butt off. Definitely is an athletic freak. Everyone knew he was going to do well at the combine. Everyone I talked to said this guy is going to put on the show, and he did. What that means as far as ways to get drafted and the impact he'll have next year, I'm not sure. I think 4 is way too high. If you are able to trade down, maybe, but even there are guys I like better. But I get it. I get why teams have why people have him there because I guess he's a fit for Guenther's defense.
Kind of reminds you of a guy like Eric Armstead, who just was this guy that always had potential but never put up big numbers at Oregon. But okay, get him into the NFL and he's going to do something. First round pick, and you see he's going into his 5th year and he still has never put up those big numbers. And some guys are that's just who they are, and you keep wanting to project them, but they just never really hit those projections. All right, next question from Henry Smith. Does Sweat and Burns' great combine push them to options at the 4th pick? He prefers them over Gary if the obvious top 3 go, and I assume the obvious would be Bosa, Williams, and Allen. I don't think either of those guys are guys you'd be considering at number 4.
No, I don't think so. I think Sweat would be the higher of the 2, but I think they're still too high. I think there's other guys that are I think you find a way to make Oliver fit before you find those guys in that position.
Yeah, or you trade down.
Yeah.
All right, question here from Stephen.
Or you hit Devin White. I mean, Devin White's going to be great.
Question here from Stephen F. Will they fall for the trap of DK Metcalf at number 4? Will you fall for that trap, Vic?
I mean, we're doing this mock draft. There's all these different kind of rules, so you may be surprised when it comes out. To come out tomorrow? Yeah, tomorrow.
Well, maybe.
We're running a surprise, but I mean, you know what? It's funny because when it happened and we had that big run, this convention center is just long hallways. You walk everywhere and you pass by like all these scouts and former players, and a handful of them who saw me laughed at me like, "Oh, you see Metcalf's time? That's a lock, baby. Gruden's going to get him. Gruden loves him. It's a Gruden." And that's what I heard like for the rest of the afternoon. Like, put that down number 4.
It's an Al Davis pick right there.
Exactly. And Gruden and Al Davis are pretty similar.
Yeah.
So I think there's always a talk about how Gruden really wanted Calvin Johnson way back when, and this is his chance. So I wouldn't rule it out. I mean, I think if he's really going to be an impact receiver of that magnitude, then he's a guy you consider that high. I mean, Calvin Johnson went high, Julio Jones, the guys we talked about. So I wouldn't rule it out. I think there'll be a bad move, probably. I think there's other guys who are not only better players but better fits and more of an impact. But I get it. I get why people will say that, and I think it's definitely possible.
He's where you suddenly grown that Bears pick or that Cowboys pick didn't end up higher, because had that been maybe an early teens pick, you could see where, okay, getting a pass rusher or a defensive lineman, impact defensive player at 4, and then having 13 or whatever to grab a guy like DK Metcalf, that would have been a perfect scenario. Right. But we can't live in the past. Those guys got Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper and made the playoffs, and those picks got lower. So
right, and I think Metcalf will go higher because, like you mentioned, there's that second group of receivers, which is now I think seen as pretty far back. Now there's definitely separation. There's a Metcalf, and you waited a while for the other guys. So now there's a view that Metcalf's a lot better than everybody else.
Yeah, if you need a receiver, you have to jump in and get him.
You need an impact guy, guys in the high point, playing the end zone to win you the game. That's the guy you want. So I think that's going to be why some teams will get him pretty. If not the Raiders, some team will get him probably in the top 10.
Yeah, and obviously a big part of all that is if they get Antonio Brown, then they're not certainly probably in the market for a DK Metcalf at that point.
Both, man. You get them both.
I need something on defense.
And
Paul Gunther's like, come on.
You get Hawkinson at 24. Woo!
Paul Gunther is gonna quit if that happens.
Paul definitely is secretly worried. I'm sure at night he tosses and turns about this draft. He's thinking, everyone thinks,
there's
worst defense, 3 picks, 4 in the top. Paul definitely is sweating it. Paul definitely does not sleep well until the draft because he's thinking about the possibility of Gruden going offense a lot more than he should.
Yeah. All right, question here from Monty. With how prepared these kids are for the interviews, what are the Raiders doing differently? I don't know if that's... It's hard, with that, unless these guys kind of give us some insight with what the questions they get.
Gruden said he tries to shock him.
Yeah.
Gruden says, and like I said, Gruden's a little crazy. So Gruden definitely is trying to go off the cuff or off the radar.
So I think a lot of teams are trying to do nowadays.
The Seahawks had a staring contest. You see that? The Seahawks had a guy do a staring contest to one of the coaches in the room.
Would you see one guy said a team asked him if he had both testicles?
Wow, I didn't see that one.
That was nuts, right?
Do you have both testicles?
Yeah, I forget what
that
the play
would catch me off guard. If I walked in thinking about I'm going to draw some plays on the board and they'd ask me about my nuts, I'll be like, what? But they're trying to see how you react. The whole thing is kind of ridiculous. I love it. I love the combine, but it's definitely ridiculous. And I just think these people take it so seriously and they ask all these questions. You got 15 minutes with a prospect. You try to ask them some stuff. And where some teams just go straight to the film. They turn on the film for 10 minutes and have you watch with them, and hopefully they see something there. But try to get a read in the guy. Trying to get a read in the guy if he really loves football. That's the big question. Does he love football? Yeah. And I guess, do you have 2 testicles? I guess that answers that question.
I don't know how, but
one guy, but whatever.
All right, from Roy Weinstein, who starts this question off with a nice little humble brag. He says, Vic, I come back from the Caribbean and still hear about trading Carr.
I came back from Indianapolis. What do you got?
I was laying on a beach in the Caribbean while you were in the snow in Indianapolis.
I wasn't in the snow. I was in the bar. But yeah, all right.
And I still hear about trading Carr. With all the holes on defense, what would we need to get for DC to make it worth it to take Haskins at 4? So I guess trade Carr and then draft Haskins at 4. What would you need to get to make that worth it? A 4th first-round pick?
I think you have to get a first-round pick. I'm not sure that's out there right now, but I wouldn't take a second for Carr. I think there's enough value there if you really want to trade him. Again, it's all about timing. I think if you wanted to do it, you should have done it earlier, or you should next do it later. I think that was the problem with the Mac deal. I think right now the teams who need quarterbacks are definitely locked in other directions. The Jags are going to sign Nick Foles any day now. I think if you're the Giants, you're targeting probably Haskins. So I just think that teams have their minds made up. So I don't know if you're going to get a 1 for Carr at this point. So would I dump Carr for a second just so I can draft Haskins? You could, but that doesn't make sense to me. That's not a good, well thought out plan to me. So I just he's guaranteed $99 million last month. So he's guaranteed the salary. I just don't know. The timing to me seems off. To me, it makes more sense. You give Carr another year. You draft some guys around him. You give him a shot. One was your one shot. If it doesn't work out to the Gruden's liking, you go into Vegas with a new quarterback and a shiny new toy, and people get excited about it, and you go from there. So they definitely could trade Carr. I've always said that's a possibility. I just don't know if the market value is what it should be at this point.
Yep. All right, question here from Mark Lubinsky. Hey, guys, Mark from London here. What makes you so certain that Gruden likes Haskins over Kyler Murray? We'll see you over here for the Chicago game.
Just what I hear. Just people talk. People talk. You have to, some things you rule out, some things you take into consideration, but that's just what I hear. I think in terms of just a classic, just the tools, that he's more of a classic quarterback. I think Gruden's, everyone's fascinated by Murray. He's he's a different guy. Yeah. But I just think Haskins got 50 touchdowns last year at Ohio State. He definitely can move a little bit. He's not a runner, but he can move it around the pocket. He has mobility.
Well, Stephen A. Smith said he's more of a runner than a passer. I believe Stephen,
Yeah, I just think he's a guy who has still also upside, a guy who you think can get better. So he's not polished. So I just think, to me, they like his – I know they like his skill set a lot. I just think he's definitely a guy who can probably come in and help you in a more traditional way. You can definitely do different things. But with Murray, you got to have him in the shotgun most. You got to change your whole offense pretty much with Murray. He's still – I know he's now huge at 5'10" and an eighth, but you still got to have him in shotgun most of the time. You still got to change your offense a lot. So Haskins gives you some options where you can still do a lot of basic stuff. Still have some wrinkles. You can definitely do what you want to do, but he'll fit in a lot easier than Murray would. And I just think they like his big playability. And he's a big, tough kid, and I just think I really like him. I just, they're not going to tell me flat out they like him, but that's just my read. My read's going to like him more than Murray.
Come on, Kyler Murray. We need him playing in the Oakland Coliseum. He was supposed to be playing there for the A's, and we got to right that wrong by getting him to play for the Raiders now. All right, 2 more questions here. This one from Nicholas Hagenson. Are Mayock and Gruden going to make a big splash in free agency, and who do you think it is? Any chance we pay C.J. Mosley?
It's possible. I think they might. I mean, big splash. I don't think they have $71 million in cap space. Mm-hmm. I don't think they're going to spend all of it. I think they're going to be a little prudent. I think they're going to look toward the future a little bit and not go too crazy. But
because you always get to roll it over. That's the beauty of the salary cap.
I can see one splash move. I think the area you don't address in the draft, if it's C.J. Mosley linebacker or one of the problem with the pass rushers is most of them are going to be gone. Most of them are going to stay home and get franchise tagged. So I can be a lot pass rusher.
When you have a good pass rusher, you tend to hold on to them.
Yeah, let's not go there. I can see Mosley. I can see whoever one big splash. I think.
Yeah, I mean Anthony Barr is a guy that you've liked. I don't know if he qualifies as a big splash, but he's a good pickup.
It'll be a sizable splash. There'll be some water, around on the chairs around the pool.
Not quite a cannonball, but
not a cannonball. But I think it'd be a great fit. I just think so. Yeah, I think there'll be 1 or 2, but I think they're not looking at really making their market for agency. I think they want to hit this draft hard to get guys to the future, guys to take to Vegas, and maybe get 1 or 2 guys in the younger. The problem is, like Mag mentioned, you want guys who are younger, but in free agency, but those guys aren't really there.
No.
Those guys stay on their team, so it's hard to find a younger, attractive free agent. But they'll try. I think they'll add a couple. I could see that, but I don't think they're going to go nuts in free agency now.
All right, final question here from The Mad Stork Has a Posse.
Wow.
Does it appear to be the plan to have all 5 starters back on the offensive line, or is there probably going to be a shakeup? And, I mean, you've written about this at least a couple of times, I think, and the expectation?
I can't lock it down, but I'm pretty sure they're going to waive Osemele. I think that's going to happen at some point. I just think that he hasn't – I mean, he's been good, but he hasn't been the dominant guy he was a couple of years ago. I think they have so much money tied up now in him and Rodney and Gabe. I'm not sure that's ideally the way you want to structure your roster.
And we've been talking about this really from mid-season on, that it's hard to, when they had other guys that they didn't want to pay, it's hard to see them wanting to pay that much on an interior offensive line.
Yeah, I think if KO was here and we asked him, I think he would agree that he kind of sees it in his future, probably somewhere else, and look at a fresh start. But that's my read. My read's he'll be gone. So I think you replace him. They just re-signed Denzel Good, who I thought played well in his 3 starts last year. I think that's not – if you have to go with him, that's not terrible. I think they can always draft a guy. I think the tackles, I think Colton Miller definitely will be back. I hope he's better than he was last year and healthier and stronger. Brandon Parker, the right tackle, is living with Gabe Jackson, trying to get a little bigger and get a better understanding of how to be an NFL-type guy. They're not sold on Brandon. I think they'll give him a shot, but I wouldn't bet any money on him starting at right tackle next year. I think it could be Donald Penn, but again, I'm not really sure that's going to happen. I could see a third guy starting at right tackle over those 2 next year. So I think it'll be definitely a shift. He'll have Rodney back. He'll have Gabe back and Colton back, but you definitely could see 2 new guys at the assembly spot and also at right tackle.
Yeah, I wonder if they would move Gabe back to the left side. Obviously, that's where he broke in. It's possible. I mean, he's had now 3 years playing right guard, right? This has been 3 years, I think, already.
3,
yeah. It's funny when you talk about Osemele, who obviously 2016. I don't have the list in front of me of NFL free agents. He might have been the best NFL free agent signing. I mean, he was a guy that he was a splash signing. He was a guy you targeted early, said he would be a great pickup. You sign him. He's a first-team All-Pro. He really changed the attitude of that offensive line.
He changed the culture. I mean, the whole mentality of that offense changed. He was killing people. He was just pancaking them and laughing in their face, and everyone bought it. I mean, it was just. The whole offensive line just took out a whole new energy, and it was great. But I just think, he has some injuries, and I think he also has this weird thing the last couple of years. He's lost a lot of weight, and it's all him. He wants to do it. He feels
I was going to ask you if that was a Cable thing, because Cable tends to like that.
It was not a Cable thing. Cable was surprised by it. It's just KO wants to live the healthiest lifestyle he can, so he just decided for himself. He lost some more weight this offseason already. I think he's lost probably 35 pounds over the last 2 years, I want to say. It still looks great. He's still a beast, but I don't know how that factors is he as much a beast as he once was, and I don't know what that means long term. But he's doing it for himself, and he's very happy. He doesn't care if people don't want him to do it. He ran it by them and said, "I'm doing this, and I feel healthier." And what are you going to say? No, I guess you could say no, but they haven't, so they said that's fine. But he's definitely changed. Definitely his whole player profile's changed a little bit. And I think he'll get a fresh start somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, and it doesn't change the fact that he was still a great free agent signing. That's the weird thing about free agency is you sign a guy for a 5-year contract. In the NFL, you're not ever expecting a guy, especially when they're signing that second contract of their career. After they've had their first 4 or 5 years in the league, you're never expecting really to probably have that full 5 years. But I mean, they got what they wanted out of him when they signed him in 2016. They had the money to do it then. Obviously, having not paid Carr at that point, and were able to build up a bully on that offensive line. We're able to make a playoff appearance with it, and if it's time to go, then it's time to go. But you wouldn't take that signing back because that really did, it made a big impact on that season. You hoped it would carry over for a couple more seasons, but whatever.
Yeah, I love Gabe, and we've said this before that I think if there was a signing, you might go back and change to be the Gabe one. I think Gabe, not only you put too much money in your middle 3 guys in your line, but also affected the Mac stuff. We talked about the Mac. I think Mac should have gone in line ahead of Gabe. I think that kind of definitely factored into all the stuff that went down. So I think Gabe was great, but I think, look in hindsight, Reggie made a mistake of re-signing Gabe as fast as he did.
Yep. All right, well, I think that'll wrap up this episode of State of the Nation, the final one of this format. We've enjoyed it, and we will not be going anywhere. Like I said, a new format. Look for us to relaunch in April. And relaunch. Right in time for...
Newer, better, fresher.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll still keep the intro, outro music. I'll talk to the guys, make sure we keep that music.
That's my jam.
I know. I sometimes I've got it on the iPod. Sometimes I'm going for a run and it comes through and I keep it going. I like that jam. All right, guys. We'll talk to you again later.
All right, guys. Take care.